This program is brought to you by Colgate. Brush twice a day for strong, healthy teeth.
Welcome to Simpson at 8. I'm Lice Movono. This is normally a quiet and serious time at the University of the South Pacific with exams underway, but the Lodala campus has this week been the center of repeated demonstrations and protests by students and staff who wish to show support for the now suspended head of the university, Vice-Chancellor Professor Paul Aluwalia. Professor Aluwalia was suspended by some Fijian members of the university's governing body, the USP Council. Tonight we talked to long-standing USP staff, concerned staff, Dr. Morgan Tuimaileli Ifano, the coordinator of the School of History, and University librarian Elizabeth Reed Fong. Both are passionate members of the USP Staff Association, who have led support for Professor Aluwalia at the campus. Dr. Tui, Mrs. Fong, thank you so much for your time. I know that I've taken you away from some busy planning and demonstrations, so what is happening at USP? There's so much attention on Lodala campus right now. Tell us what's going on.
Well, the executive committee of the council, many of us believe, both here at Lodala and across the region, have wrongfully suspended Professor Paul Aluwalia. Their reason for suspending him is approximately 33 supposed allegations of material misconduct.
We saw him come out of meetings after repeated demonstrations and speak to the crowd who were very passionate in their support for him. What did he say to you?
He was walking out of his office, and just before that, the executive committee of council had just completed its deliberations, and the staff and concerned staff and students had demonstrated outside the place where the meeting had taken place.
And we saw all this unfolding on live stream on Facebook and on other social media. And what did he say to you after those deliberations, after he was given the result of those deliberations?
He simply came out and said he's heard that he's been suspended through the public media, through FBC.
Wow.
And that's how we found out too. While we were outside, suddenly there was a message from social media, and that was one of the sad things about it. There was no courtesy, no formal statement, or at least a forewarning and information to the person concerned, to Professor Aluwalia, and for him to also inform us. We all got the information about the same time through social media.
Well, that's very sad to hear. And what are the supposed reasons behind this suspension?
Well, from our perspective, they have found some evidence which they think makes him guilty enough to be investigated. So when he spoke with us, what he said was, "We will be strong together. I love this university and I'm here for you all, and together we will show what is good." And he said, "I have done no wrong." He said, "and I am prepared to see this through." So the response from everybody who was there was, "We're with you too. We want to see justice done and fairness done." And like Dr. Morgan said, we were rather sad that we weren't officially informed by our university, that we had to hear it from the media. But thanks to the media for playing a part and informing us early.
What do the staff and students want? We've seen you repeatedly go out there and the threats and warnings, rather, from law enforcement, reminding you that you can't do this, but you're out there. What is it that you and Dr. Aluwalia see as the good that needs to be done?
I think what we want done is we want justice and fairness to reign. there are processes within the university. The university has a lot of processes and procedures to guide this. It's the abuse of that which led to Dr. Aluwalia putting out that report last year. So basically we want to see that dealt with, and there are internal processes. I have seen the 33 allegations.
Tell us about
And
them.
from my perspective, many of them are HR type allegations, but they're not at a level to suspend a vice chancellor. They're at a level where in a normal process of things, yes, you would invest, you would do it internally and say, what's happening here? Why hasn't this happened? But when I looked at it today, it came through a fake Gmail is how I got it. And I thought these issues, I've been there a long time, so I know what some of the processes could be. And I actually explained to my staff today what I thought were the allegations, what I thought the way the allegations could have been dealt with. But certainly, you know, to have an executive council convened and then to suspend, the executive council of USP does not appoint. It was the full council of 33 that appointed Professor Aluwalia. So we think if the executive council found something, they should have recommended to council is suspension. I think that would have been viewed by the entire university community as being more fair and just than the way it's gone.
Dr. Morgan, we've all seen the students join, the Staff Association in the same passionate call for justice. What do you think this executive committee should have done?
The executive committee is the executive committee of council. And council in 2009, after their special council meeting in Nandi, they decided on a process, and that process, as we all know, was that there was a subcommittee of council which appointed a 3-persons commission.
Sorry, 2019.
2019, sorry, and that commission was then tasked with
investigations.
with looking at the report.
At the Aluwalia report.
At the BDO.
The BDO report.
At the
yes.
BDO report, which.
So you think that should have been a priority for this executive council, not the suspension of the VC?
No. Well, what was agreed to by council was that what Professor Aluwalia had revealed in his report. They needed to be investigated fully,
right.
And they agreed that the report was presented, and this is the BDO report was presented to council at that special meeting in Nandi last year, and then they agreed, okay, we will now ask this commission to have a look at the report and come back with some recommendations on a way forward. But what happened is that instead of waiting for the commissioner's report to come through, they unfortunately the pro-chancellor and the deputy pro-chancellor and Mr. Mahmoud Khan, the chair of the ARC, they were all party to that resolution, to the council resolution. And they all agreed to that process.
So they're obligated to complete that process before taking other action.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody had signed up on that process. Yes. But instead of waiting for that process to complete, waiting for the report, the commission's report to come, they've
taken drastic action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll talk more about that BDO report in the coming segment. Professor Aluwalia took over the leadership at USP from Professor Rajesh Chandra in November of 2018. Dr. Chandra, now the head of the government-owned Fiji National University, headed the USP for 10 years. Coming up next, we examine what Professor Aluwalia found out almost immediately after he became Vice-Chancellor.
This program is brought to you by Colgate. Brush twice a day for strong, healthy teeth. This program is brought to you by Colgate. Brush twice a day for strong, healthy teeth.
Welcome back. In a comprehensive 11-page paper called Issues, Concerns and Breaches of Past Management, Professor Alualia advised the USP Council in early 2019 of at least 26 allegations of mismanagement by his predecessor, Professor Chandra. Not everyone on the council was happy to hear of these allegations, and Pro-Chancellor Winston Thompson even called for action against Professor Alualia. However, the paper became the basis of a preliminary investigation by Auckland-based accounting firm BDO. The BDO full report was never publicized, but its summary concluded eventually that governance was indeed weak across the USP. The 11-page Alualia report implicated some senior members of the university's management team alleged to have benefited from Professor Chandra's alleged mismanagement. One of these alleged beneficiaries was sacked in May of this year by Professor Alualia amidst allegations that he plagiarized his entire PhD thesis. Mrs. Fong, the Alualia report, the BDO summary, because we still have not seen the comprehensive report, they alleged, and we're going to continue to call them allegations because, as we discussed in the previous segment, the investigations continue. They're alleged to have benefited from this alleged mismanagement. Now, these alleged beneficiaries, are they still at USP?
Yes, they are.
How does it feel to know that people who are alleged to have made so much money off of this university that, you know, people like the two of you have worked for so long, continue to be there doing what they're alleged to have done? How do the staff and students feel about this?
Rather saddened that they are there. They're not able to continue what was being done under Professor Rajesh Chandra. And I think the staff and students, in fairness, also want them to have justice done for them. So we want them to be taken to task and asked, given the opportunity to respond. And we believe that the BDO report pointed that out. The Commission is looking at strengthening the way to go, but we're not quite sure how these individuals might be dealt with. I know it's a legal issue, but I do think at the end of the day, for us to just get a report that says, naughty, naughty, now you must tidy up everything, is not quite what people think should be done. And that's both students and staff. I'd like to say here at this point in time, the Student Association has been strong. We have been working with them very closely.
I think that it's one of the very visible parts of what's been happening this entire week. The students seem passionate.
Yes, the university is about the students, what the students need and what the students get. And the students at this point in time only recognize VC Pal as their Vice Chancellor. And so they're prepared to stand by him.
And so what I understand to have been the catalyst of this week's, or rather the past few weeks' events, the senior manager, whose name we will not reveal because of legal issues, that was terminated in late May. What's happened to him? Is he now being investigated? What's happened to him?
From what I gather, it's what we get from the media. He has taken the university to task. And it was a DBA, a doctorate in business administration with a university, an online university in the US.
Okay.
And what the university found, it went through due diligence and followed internal procedures and had an assessment done of the work by an independent person. And from what I understand, they found the paper to be wanting. In academic circles, that kind of thing is a no-no. It's a cardinal sin to plagiarize. So it was seen very serious and taken very seriously.
Dr. Morgan, when you and I first discussed this issue in September of last year, as you mentioned in the first segment, a high-level commission consisting of the Deputy Prime Minister of Samoa, the Prime Minister of the Cook Islands, and our own Attorney General were meant to oversee the actions arising from that BDO report. They were meant to oversee investigations and make changes. What sort of investigations have taken place, and what sort of changes have you seen happen at Lodala?
At the moment, we haven't heard much from the Commission. Only apart from the fact that that subcommittee, comprising of those high-level government appointees, have appointed the Commission. But we have yet to hear from the Commission. We know that they're working and that they have made some visits to the campus.
Okay.
We don't know whether they are visiting the other campuses, but they have been to Suva, I think, a couple of times, and they continue to meet under the present conditions.
Okay.
But when we asked for when can we expect the report, and so far this is second-hand sources, and so far we've been told that it should be available around between October and November.
So that process continues. Mrs. Fong, what of your colleagues and students from across the region, from the other 12 member countries, what are they saying?
They're saying that they want things to change, they want to see good governance in place, they want to see justice done. And I've heard from every single campus, photos being sent, campus directors saying, go for it, Libby, we need to get this cleaned up. This affects our future. This is our institution. And many of the staff out there, well, most of us are alumni. So this is our alma mater. So it's to make sure this does not happen again. Bring everybody into place. So yes, there's lots of support out from the region, not to mention all the government leaders. We went out, we had to reach out to leaders of government in order to draw this
Because they do
to
sit
their
on your
attention.
council.
Yes, the leaders have their representatives on council, so they have written. Australia has confirmed, New Zealand has confirmed as development partners that they support due process, and the due process is for the full council to meet. And by the way, there has been a directive for the full council to meet within 5 working days,
Really?
effective
Okay.
yesterday, so we're looking forward to that.
Let's talk more about that in the next segment. With the Vice Chancellor now suspended, USP is being led by one of his deputies, Dr. Derek Armstrong, who himself was implicated in the initial Alualia report. After the break, we discuss why this suspension is quite contentious. Don't go away.
This program is brought to you by Colgate. Brush twice a day for strong, healthy teeth. This program is brought to you by Colgate. Brush twice a day for strong, healthy teeth.
Welcome back. The University of the South Pacific is owned by the 12 member states of the Pacific Island Forum, who each contribute to the operational costs of the university. So each country has representatives on the USP Council. Dr. Morgan, Mrs. Fong, why is this particular suspension so controversial?
I believe, Lee, the controversy stems from two levels. The first level is the process, the process in which it was...
The way in which it was done.
The way in which it was done. The rules of the suspension is that it's a council. It's a council decision. It's supposed to be made by the full council, and if there is a special executive committee of council, if there is a meeting of the executive committee, then there's also a process. The vice chancellor needs to be consulted, and the rest of and the matters to be discussed, particularly the suspension of the vice chancellor, needs to be well known.
Communicated to the rest of the
council.
council. But that wasn't done.
I don't believe that was done. Certainly, the vice chancellor was not consulted.
Okay.
And the second level in which this issue is contentious is the fact that the leaders, the people that were responsible for convening the executive committee, 3 or 4 of them are implicated in the vice chancellor.
Massive conflicts of interest.
Conflict of interest.
As we see it,
Okay.
yes.
But there's a question that seems contentious right now, and that we needed to clear up. Does the executive committee of the USP Council have the power to hire, fire, or suspend a vice chancellor?
Not as far as we're aware. They can meet to discuss any allegations against the Vice Chancellor. But as far as I'm aware, they do not have the power to suspend. They may recommend to Council, based on their findings, what the situation is, and I guess they may be able to recommend the outcome.
Yes.
But we don't believe that they have the power to even suspend him.
Well, the Pro-Chancellor definitely thinks otherwise. He's come out to say that they've worked within their powers. But anyway,
But that's the
contentious
contentious
part.
issues. Yes, he how can he say that when he himself is fully implicated, and plus the person that they've appointed as the acting Vice Chancellor, he's also implicated
as well. Mrs. Fong, sorry, in the previous segment you said that they've now been directed, the Executive Committee has now been directed to, or rather the University has been directed to have the full Council meet.
Yes, that's the communication from the Chancellor, to whom the Pro-Chancellor reports. And the current Chancellor is Kabua from the Marshall Islands.
Okay.
And he has called upon them to convene a meeting within 5 working days of the full council. And the council, is it the ordinances, says that you can convene digitally.
Okay.
So,
And this is another issue that's come about. They've cited, we've seen reference to the COVID-19 restrictions, or the difficulty of meeting physically. Is a digital full council meeting within the capabilities of the university?
very much so. We pioneered this kind of communication, and as soon as COVID came in, we were ready to hit the ground running. So that is what surprised many of us when the Pro-Chancellor said it was difficult to convene such a meeting. World leaders are meeting. The whole world is meeting online. So this did not go down. We've got all kinds of technological capabilities with fiber, etc. So yes, it was rather puzzling for us.
Do you think this contributed, Dr. Morgan, to the passions and the strength we're seeing at your protests, at the students' protests?
I think so. We have students. Not only are we reaching out to the students in the 12 member countries, but in other countries around the region, in New Zealand, Australia,
They've commented.
and they've all they're all reachable through this technology that we have. So either the Pro-Chancellor is ignorant of the technology, or he is playing something else. Whether he's continuing his protracted agenda on convening the council.
Okay. Well, it's been refreshing for very many of us seeing this sort of protest. It's been so many years since we've seen things like this at USP or all over the country for that matter. Has it been peaceful? We've seen police presence. There are a lot of parents out there worried for their children. Are you able to ensure peaceful demonstrations of solidarity?
Definitely. Very peaceful. That's one of the things that Professor Paul Aluwalia said when he spoke to us. We will do this peacefully. We will do this within the law. And that is what we've done. When we met the other day, we distanced ourselves. We made sure nobody could question our commitment to COVID. Granted, I do say one point we all got a bit carried away, but generally we came out and said, yes, the police presence, we find that a little bit challenging in terms of the police coming to campus.
Can they come into campus? There's been some conversation around that.
The way people read the rules differs a bit. We believe that they come to campus when they are called. We have a chief security officer with a really good team, and he is capable of handling issues, and he has informed the police also that if they cannot handle a situation, they will call them, and if it's criminal in nature, they will also do the same. So we don't see the need for police presence. There's no violence. I constantly say we stay within the law, we respect the law. I think that's very important.
It most definitely is. I have to ask, last question. What are your biggest fears? Why such a strong show of support for Professor Aluwalia? Why must he stay in this position of Vice Chancellor at USP?
I think it's, if I may go first, this relates back to our earlier session, Lide, and that is for some of us who've been around for a while, we knew over the last 3 or 4 years that
Of the problems in
there
USP.
was a problem, and there was a problem. But for many of us, we were not able to penetrate and to penetrate the senior managers and to get to understand what was going on. I had been in the union, and I had a sense that there was something, and then I stepped back and became an administrator. And I had a sense that there was also something going on. So I think why Professor Al-Wali's term is important is because he has revealed, he has exposed what we in our hearts had always felt, but we couldn't prove it.
So he brought you hope that things would change.
Exactly. He brought hope, and he restored our faith
In academia.
In academics, in
This is
academics
fun.
being people of integrity and of professional competence. Yeah.
Well, I think he should stay because he was found through an international search and 3 people were interviewed and he came out tops. We are aiming for excellence. We want to be ranked in the world. And I think he comes with the credentials to enable that to happen. If only he was allowed to get on with his job. He's had many obstacles put in his space, but he has responded. He is warm. He is very caring about the staff and students. And I think that is why we're getting this response and support. That care and personal outreach, open door policy, yeah, I think he's come to make changes to take us to the next level of excellence.
The other thing too is that he's also very spiritual, a very spiritual person. When we, as you might have seen, we had a little prayer and a hymn at the demonstration, and in many gatherings that he attends inside the campus, it usually precedes by a prayer.
So he's culturally sensitive to the cultures of the South Pacific.
To describe.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm afraid that we've come to the end of that. We certainly hope solutions to this impasse will be found soon.
We hope so too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Live.
When they first began protesting, there were only a handful, but these staff and students of the Lodala campus of the Regents University have begun a Pacific-wide movement, which now includes calls from leaders of Samoa, Nauru, New Zealand, Australia, and even the Marshall Islands, calling for transparency, for accountability, and most of all, for better behavior from Fiji. We will bring you developments to this story in the coming days. That is all we have time for tonight. You are watching Simpson at 8. Join us again at the same time, same place. Good evening.
This program was brought to you by Colgate. Brush twice a day for strong, healthy teeth.